The area around Mesquite was an area that I had selected to do night sky photography, and I'm not an expert on night sky photography. I have a tracker now. I'm still learning how to use it, but at the time I was trying to do single exposure night sky photography, and so I picked an area that was supposed to be really dark. What I didn't realize is that time of the season, if you turn any light on out in the desert, you'll be covered with moths. So I was trying to film my night skies with a moth invasion going on. The enthusiasm for Mesquite was genuine. I really liked the area, but I made the decision, as I mentioned earlier, to head across the extraterrestrial highway through Rachel, Nevada, onto Tonopah and do a nickel tour of Tonopah, meaning just drive around. I had kind of a shot list of places that I wanted to go. Well, we just turned onto the famous Nevada 375 extraterrestrial highway. Anyway, up ahead will be Rachel, and that's one of the famous spots for UFO gatherings and things like that. I passed a little UFO hangar back there, the had a museum, and it mentioned something about you're in the boundary of Area 51. Anyway, so far it's just open range traffic. Just turned onto this. We're about 14 miles from Alamo, Nevada, and that was a fuel and lunch stop. Anyway, this is the way to Bishop for me tonight. I've always wanted to do the extraterrestrial highway. Because of my travel plans, I'm having to do it in the daytime. It's supposed to be a lot more interesting at night. One thing that's really cool out west is where you have a road. It just goes up over a mountain range. You can see it almost like a suspended ribbon in the sky. It's pretty neat. Anyway, we're approaching famous Rachel, Nevada. See the UFO there? And I don't know what makes this thing tick. I'm going to slow down here. Obviously, we're on the extraterrestrial highway. And it's kind of a quaint little town. Looks like mostly RVs people are living in. It's ranching country. There's been a ton of open range cattle that have approached lots of cattle guards. So anyway, this is Rachel, Nevada. That's the little alien. Usually in telling a story in a video, you really need to capture the gist of the roadside signs of a place. And I changed my mind. I was cruising right on through Rachel and decided to turn around and go back and just take some time to do a nickel tour. So I took just pictures of the roadside signs there in Rachel, making the stop there pretty brief because I'm anxious to get on to Tonopah. And I'd actually never done the Route 6 coming into Bishop the back way. I've always gone up through 395 or 15 from Southern California. So, Rachel, you're being revisited here for these photos. What I forgot to say was the thing that's cool about Rachel, Nevada is the fact that it's located on the corner of Area 51. I didn't get a lot of time hanging around Rachel because I was really in the mood to get to Bishop, and the day was a fairly long day of driving, and I wanted to get to the area of Highway 6 where it actually descends into the Owens Valley. I'd read that that area can be very beautiful, and I will have later videos showing some of the photos that I captured. The bristlecone pines have been filmed many, many times by serious landscape photographers. I didn't have a chance to explore that on this trip. I have to go back. But again, the significance of where I stopped for gas, that's in a little town called Ash Springs. And it's about 150 miles from Ash Springs to the next place to get fuel. and I wanted to make sure that the truck was fueled up. On the way to Tonopah, I kind of wondered, is Tonopah going to have that kind of hip flavor that Jerome, Arizona has, where part of the town has the old mining flavor, but there are new shops and life and everything like that? I really didn't know. I'd made a charter flight once into the Tonopah airport, and that was one of those Army airfields, and everything was very suited for flying. They had a 7,160-foot runway, 75 feet width, and they had a VOR approach, which back in the old days was great. The Tonopah VOR has always been there, right on the charts. That was important back in the days that I was flying around doing charter flights and things like that. So I'd been to the airport, but I'd never been into town. When you're flying an A36 Bonanza and your clients have their own vehicle, you sit there at the airport and you wait. But anyway, I didn't mind that one day that I spent in Tonopah, but I was always curious about the town. Was it going to be a dying town? Was it going to be vibrant? What was the town of Tonopah like? I knew a little bit about the history. I'd talked to some of the folks, and you always heard about the fantastic Jim Butler and how he miraculously found the silver by chasing his burro who ran off, and then he went to pick up a boulder to throw at his poor burro, and the boulder was so heavy that he knew something was different. And as he had that boulder assayed it was full of silver. Probably old Jim Butler, being married to a Shoshone woman, a Native American, probably heard about the mineral riches from his wife's family. The days of Tonopah being the queen of the silver mining cities in Nevada was probably short-lived. There, around the early 1900s, things were booming. In fact, Wyatt Earp had his own saloon. He had a bouncer that was going to be very well known as a boxer, Jack Dempsey. And things didn't seem like they were ever going to run out. But the boom didn't last very long. Even some of the early residents saw that they were better off spreading their branches across Nevada and buying other land, other mines, and everything like that. In fact, some of those guys went on to help form the casinos and hotels that were in Reno, Nevada. So gambling turned out to be their ultimate gold mine. But that's a whole other story for another video. Meanwhile, I'm afraid that Tonopah kind of reflects a town that's seen its better days in the past. You know, it's funny, in places that, like Jerome that I mentioned, you feel very much like people are here by choice. They've come here, and there's a quaintness to it. I didn't get that same vibe in Tonopah. I drove Main Street. I drove up towards the mining museum, got out at the mining museum. I enjoyed what I saw, but I didn't want to really hang around. The promised land for a landscape photographer is the Owens Valley. And if you've ever followed Galen Rowell in his works, in the famous landscape clinics that he put on, the workshops, he was a legend that influenced a whole generation of photographers like me.
Found between the covers of his new Sierra Club book, Mountain Light, In Search of the Dynamic Landscape.
Yosemite Valley is one of the most beautiful places in the world, and the best light comes at magic hour, which is in the morning, the first hour after sunrise, and in the evening, the last hour before sunset. Light is everything. If there's no light, you have no photograph. And in landscape photographs, I think in terms of light first. I don't even think of the subject matter first. I think I'm looking for great light, magical light. And when I find it, I run around madly and look for something to put into it. But I don't look for a subject and then say, oh, what's the light like? Well, is it good, bad? First of all, I think of light. And it looks spectacular to your eye, but the only way you can really capture it is to somehow compress the range that your film is recording. And I use a split neutral density filter to do that. One part of it is gray, it doesn't add any color to it. and it holds back the exposure about 2 stops, and then it gradually gradates into clear. And if I put that line of gradation along the place where the light changes, then I can have a good exposure in the shadows and still not overexpose the highlights. And that's a way that I get around having lighting contrasts that exceed the capabilities of my film.
To look at Galen's completed shot, you'd never suspect that a split and gradated neutral density filter was needed. But without the filter, the huge difference between the bright highlights and shadow areas becomes easily visible. Our eyes automatically adjust. And according to Galen Rowell, that's a crucial factor photographers must take into account.